We came so far from dreams. The path was hard for me. They thought we fall, you see. Well, look at us now, look at us now. We make it hot when we on the scene. Yeah, that's 1,000 degrees. I got a grind for me and my team. Yeah, you know we gon' eat. You see the crowds when we come around. You know that I roll with some kings. We sit it down, I don't hear a sound, but I ask you who better than we. Tell me who better than we. We soaring to places you never could reach. When we walk in that spot, don't hear none of you speak. Shh, do you want peace or the peace? A king about to put you to sleep. Listen, my team is elite. You not even qualified to compete. He starving, he barely can eat. I guess that's why he always itching for beef. So I put him on ice and I told him to chill. Close your mouth if you can't pay for the meal. Making statements that you know you don't mean. Nice guy trying to act like he mean. Keep it a buck, keep it a bean. Attitudes will put you dudes in the beam. Isekai, he don't live in reality. Shake back, all become a fatality. Yeah, how you gon' hate when you mirror us? He think he a star, he ain't serious. X him out, we not on the same frequency. If you broke, you ain't hearing this. Work the screw, anime, that's how I feel, period. We winning, that's making them furious. We make it high when we on the scene, yeah, that's 1,000 degrees. I got a grind for me and my team, yeah, you know we gon' eat. You see the crowds when we come around, you know that I roll with some kings. We sit it down, I don't hear a sound, but I ask you who better than we.
Yo, what it do, guys? It is your boy, Leon Mookie here, and I'm back with you with another new part of What If Will Had a Keyblade. This is part 4, and like I said in the last part, these series were coming back to back, given my fire and love for Kingdom Hearts has been ignited with of everything coming to that of Switch, and finally getting some Kingdom Hearts news on 4. So like I said, I want to keep this going for the time being while I can. So, and that said, let's go with that of a necessary recap. In the last part, Will, alongside that of his friends, working hard and giving it their all, with Will basically getting higher and higher in credits when it comes to praxis and writing, and finally just needs one more point so he can basically ascend the tower. Not to mention, Wertner has been trying his best to help out that of Will to reawaken that of his Keyblade, the ultimate weapon, but with no luck whatsoever, as no matter what Will does, outside of putting him in mortal danger, he can't reawaken the Keyblade. But even so, life still goes on, but it seems like Will's dream of ascending the tower to reach that of Elfie is now completely and utterly shattered by Edwards alone, by basically rigging an entire test against him, as he said it only to do as a sense of mercy. Okay, what? Oh, right. Sorry, guys. I had a little bit of a rant and I had to cut it out of the recording. But either way, let's continue. With Will basically being comforted by Rusty, everybody else worried for him. However, that's when they all head to that of the Terminus Festival for the Magiavander to basically repair that of the barrier, but leaving the Magiavander weak, where that of the criminals from that basically took part in that of that interrupted the practice exam at the academy, summoned that of dungeon monsters onto the surface to cause nothing but havoc and also to bring down the Magiavander. So, with all that said, let's get into this, shall we, guys? As the streets are in basically chaos, tons civilians being brutalized and being caught up in that of destroyed debris and buildings as well. As currently now, seeing the monsters being that of high-level deep dive monsters, otherwise known as Rex Dino Voroshin. Monsters that basically look like they have that of bone-like armor across their bodies, as they discriminate and kill almost all civilians, even that of mages themselves. However, luckily, Maria basically comes into that of the fray on that of her broomstick. Before then, she creates that of a spell circle that creates that of multiple bubbles, which in turn creates that of golems. As she tells the surrounding mages, everyone, create that a defensive line, protect all the civilians. I'll hold as many of them back as I can. As the mage in charge of that of the forces right next to that of Maria, as those from the fire faction and the leader being that of Rosh, giving out orders to that of his men to basically fortify that of the frontline defense and also destroy and wipe out that of the ambush monster forces as they all combined out of their spells, sending that of a blast of flames, leaving that of, Scion, Wignall, and even that of Liara, who were there to also help out while they can, to be shocked and surprised about how much power that those that who ascend the tower have. With Rush basically not even, fazed by this, as his arrogance is basically, consuming him right now. However, one of the Dino Vex is still standing, saying, "Worthless cur, be gone!" As he sends that of another fire-based spell that basically sends that of another torrent of flames that creates a massive explosion in the process. With him not even thinking that the monster is already taken care of. However, it's not even looking like it has a scratch on him. Which once again, catching that to the high-ranking mage completely off guard. Within, Maria noticing that it's holding something, saying, "Rush, get out of there, now!" Unfortunately, it was too late, as that of the monster, wielding a blade, cuts him in half, with everybody completely and utterly in shock, as the blade looks exactly like that of the broken sword that Finn basically brought to that of Headmistress Cauldron, as it being a mage slayer's sword. However, it's not just your typical mage slaying sword, as it's even able to nullify and absorb that of magic. Basically a monsterized version of Asta, which leaves everybody completely and utterly shocked. Even Maria's golems and guardian golems are basically being sliced to pieces with just a one single slash. However, currently, while that of flames and destruction are happening across that of the capital at ReGarden Academy, Headmistress Cauldron has already deduced the real reason behind this attack. The attack is for them to kill the Magia Vander, as the monsters would basically, destroy that of the capital as that of a diversion, while that of the highest ranking monsters would basically go through that of the academy and ascend to the tower to kill the Magia Vander, who are currently at their weakest right now, because once the spell to reform the barrier has basically been formed, magic reserves are so low to the point that they're basically on that of a level of a normal person with basic level magic reserves. Even Aaron, the current head and king of the Magia Vander himself, basically ordered all of them, from that of Alfiria to Eleanor, Zeal, and Cariot, as he basically says to allow those onto the ground to defend this tower and save themselves, saying that they have to have faith in them after all. However, currently on the bottom, as the very people who orchestrate this very attack, from that of Zio and also Headless, with Zio a little bit annoyed, saying, "Guessing the Magia Vander don't want to play after all." After fixing up the barrier, if only they show themselves, things would be a lot more easier, don't you think? With Headless saying, "True, however, let's just enjoy the show while we can. We'll never get another chance like this ever again, don't you think?" As he writes this out, as everything begins to burn around them. However, with Iris basically looking around, seeing the destruction as a watcher, feeling like her duty to basically find the greatest talent and see if they have that of potential, being Magia Vander, all dying before her eyes. As the glasses-wearing young lady can't help but feel absolute despair before noticing that of a girl and her mother, with that of the mother being trapped under debris and the girl trying her best to get her out. However, that's when a wreck soon shows itself, and was about to attack the two. But that's when, and out of a blink and you missing moment, its arm was soon cut off. And as the arm falls, standing before that of the Rex is Will with his blade, with Iris looking absolutely happy saying, "Will Senpai, that was such a cool entrance." With Will looking back at the monster with that of a look of pure and utter determination and hatred. With Zeno and Headless noticing this too, as they realize the brat's here. With Will rushing into that of the fray as he cuts down each and every one of the monsters in his path, slicing them in two or even in threes as well, while thinking to himself, why is this world so unfair to swords like myself, those who wield a blade? I understand magic is everything, but yet, does magic truly all that matters? Does not hard work, determination, training, and even giving it your all mean nothing? For all this time, I've always just hated how this world was. And part of me even thinks maybe it was just better off gone. However, even so, with basically slicing through, before then, going through that of several Rexes, with slicing them in pieces, before then jumping up into the air and slicing one down, saying, I never wanted anything like this to happen to those who don't deserve it though, damn it! Before noticing more and more monsters basically coming everywhere, as Will's right sword hand begins to shake before using his left hand to basically calm himself, saying, damn it, stop shaking, Will. The more afraid you are, the more scared you are, the more people die. I have to stand my ground. With that, he soon rushes into that of a crowd of people running from one of the Rexes, before then slicing it right through that of its collarbone as it falls to the ground. As Will continues blitzing towards that of the streets, before then jumping up on the rooftop, taking down another monster. That's when he hears the familiar voice, as it being Rusty, saying, Will, focus on the monsters with swords. For those who don't have any, lead them to me. As one of the Rexes heading straight for that of Rusty, however, it didn't have that of a mage killer sword, as he soon brings out his wand, Crystal Reed, as it basically sends that of a blast of water magic towards that of the monster, as he tells Will, many of us mages can handle the ones without swords. You focus on them. You're our only hope for this, Will. All right, let's do it then. As he reaches one with that of a mage killer sword, as the two basically clash blades, put into that of a deadlock, with Will trying his best to get the upper hand. However, this one seems like it has at least some grip behind it. As the two blades begin sparking, with Will, all of his might, roars before then breaking the blade into two, before pushing forward and slicing into that of the Rex as well. Before then, Will takes a breather before soon rushing back into that of the fray, trying to save as many people and take out as many monsters as he can. With Iris noticing this, realizing that this is not as easy, even though Will may be the only person that can take down the Mage Slayer monsters, that doesn't mean he's only one person. And as much as she wants to help that of her senpai, after all, it's easier said than done. Before then, that's when one of the video drones begins to fly down to that of Iris, as it shows that of Aaron's figure. With then, the Mage King saying, Iris, I give you my full authority for the time being in this crisis. With Iris shocked by this, saying, yes, sir. Before he say, mobilize all the dwarves within that of the city. Give them permission to fight with weapons. Hearing that, Iris saying, understood, Lord Aaron. As that of the magic transmission fades, as soon it also flies away, with then using that of her wand to amplify her voice, saying, On the words of Aaron Wistoria's orders, by that of the words of the Watchers themselves, I uplift the law of Garvere. I lift the ban on that of all dwarven combat. Now is the time for mages and dwarves. Put aside your differences and work together to push back these invaders. As in the distance, and that of the dwarven district, they all begin to hear that. However, even as that of a extra result, that's when Wartner basically comes into that of Gina's tavern, asking for that of their help. With that of Dorian basically saying, you damn mages, already ready to put us at work after all, aren't you? Before Gina basically grips the guy's shoulder saying, none of your backsass right now. We know what we need to do. Within, Dorian huffing saying, yeah, I know. Before then, both of them say, let's go out there to help out Will. He needs us. After that, all the dwarves basically cheer with that of their blades and axes and weapons in hand, ready to help out Will, the one person who's always been there to help them out, no matter what. Currently in another district, with that of one of the Rexes being shot down by that of a purple-like spear, as it being from Edward, saying, as he tells that of the students in front of him, to leave the arm monsters to that of the dwarves, while focusing on that of the other threats without that of weapons. Even telling them that he does not care that they're students or even care if they're considered the weakest in their classes. As of now, they need as many fighters as they can get in this crisis. Remember, this is all you've been training for, to be the ones to protect this country, our people. Remember that. With some a little bit anxious, mainly that of two of, Julius's lackeys actually, worried the fact that, given that they were that these monsters ended up killing that of high-ranking mages from the tower, what chances do they got after all? However, there are some that are not even afraid to fight back, such as that of Liana, with Liara channeling that of her lightning magic and using that of her Viara spell, blitzing past that of the monsters without mage killer swords and slicing them in two with that of her lightning blade. However, even though she took them out, it took a lot of energy from her, actually, with realizing these monsters from the deep dungeon are something else. Even for one of my most simplest spells, I had to basically put so much energy into it. Not to mention, as soon a mage killer monster, Rex, began to basically fly down with bringing its blade up before striking down. Liara noticing this as she blitzes past while also trying to attack it at the same time. However, she notices that no matter her attack, the lightning and the sword begin to nullify each other. But her realizing no matter what we do, either the sword is negating or basically completely blocking and absorbing any type of spell. In simpler terms, no matter what mage you are, come in contact with that blade and you are done. However, I know one person that's able to work around that problem one bit. Before then, somebody running towards her, as it being Colette, saying, Liara, you're being too reckless. You know that, right? With her basically a little bit scoffing, but also appreciating that of Colette's worry for her, saying, sorry about that. And besides, aren't you more the reckless type alongside Will? Within hearing that, with even that of her cheeks blushing, just hearing Will's name, saying, seriously, now of all times? Within, Wignall trying to use that of illusion magic. However, even with that, the Mage Slayer sword even basically dispels it. With Wignall a little bit frustrated with that, with even Julius basically saying that there's no way in hell the dwarves are going to be showing up anytime soon. The frontline defense forces will basically be wiped out before the vanguard shows up. And better yet, it's best to just run away than basically stay here and die. With Wignall getting annoyed at this, saying, you can't be serious. Before then, Scion saying, wait, I think I got something. Even though he says it's only for a split second, there's a moment where they're basically slowed down when they either absorb or nullify that of magic attacks. we can basically take advantage at that very moment. Before then, raising up his wand alongside that of Julius and Wignall, saying, strike at random intervals. Don't get it a single chance to basically absorb or strike back. As they do so, the three boys send that of multiple spells that they're used to towards that of the mage slaying wielding Rex, with, however, unable to basically absorb or attack or basically even able to counter that of the spells. All it's doing is basically defending itself from each attack, as Scion's plan to basically holding it in place is working well, before screaming towards Colette to strike it down. With Colette a little bit nervous and even kinda, embarrassed right now, as none of her spells are good enough to take them all out at once, so she has to improvise. Before being in that of the nearby fountain where she, Will, and Rusty hanged out at, she's noticing that of the statue of Saint Viola, as she begins levitating in a big ass chunk under that of the statue, before screaming, Saint Viola, please forgive me, as she throws the massive statue at that of the mage slaying wielding monster, and the ones without that of the blade as well, killing the monsters entirely, with Julius looking completely and utterly dumbfounded, saying, are you kidding me? You destroyed a former Magia Vander statue? Are you asking to get yourself in trouble after all this shit is done? With Colette still basically embarrassed and annoyed at that of Julius saying, shut up! It's all I could think of, damn it! With Wignall messing with his hair as that of a nervous tick, before then realizing, I get it now. Physical objects, even like that of blades and weapons, can deal them damage even with that of the Mage Killer sword. Basically, anything without magic is fair game against them. Before looking at that of his other friend, Liara, saying, Liara, right. Before then, looking at that of their classmates, saying, all those proficient in that of earth magic, show them what you're capable of. Throw that of any type of rocks, debris, and any form of landmass at those with the blades. Let's show them that us students from ReGarden Academy are capable of surviving this night. With many of them cheering and getting pumped to fight back now. With Maria seeing all of the students basically now figuring things out, and she can't help but be impressed, especially thinking that her two idiot friends are the ones who taught them well after all. Before then, she gives out the orders to that of the other high-ranking tower mages to focus around that of earth mages, to give them time for the dwarves to show up. And speaking of those very dwarves, they finally arrive with blades, axes, and swords, ready to fight back and protect that of their own home as well. With Headless and Zio kind of annoyed the fact that they've already prepared that of a countermeasures after all. Not to mention the fact that the reason why this attack seemed ready, but also somewhat half-baked at the same time, was due to that of their allies being discovered down into the lower floor dungeons. Speaking of that of those in that of the dungeon, currently in that of the deeper lower floors, an entire brigade of rogue mages are basically being slaughtered by one individual, that being Flynn, as he realized, so you're the ones who basically developed those specific type of mage slayers. I had to ask, where the hell were your contacts for? With then, the guy basically saying, go to hell. Before then, Flynn saying, yep, figures. Before then throwing his sword into the guy, before then stomping on that of the bottom end of the hilt and basically completely killing him as he coughs up blood. Before then removing his sword, then saying, better get back up there. Looks like their little plan has already begun. Before thinking, I really hope that you're up there, even though you say you don't want to get involved unless necessary. Thinking about a specific friend of his. At the same time as Flynn is heading back up from the dungeon, Will basically destroys several more and more monsters and helping out as many civilians as he can, as Headless and Xeno at the same time are already preparing to summon another monster from that of the deep floors, as it looks like that of a Dino Bee, but however, it looks somewhat utterly different, as even though it still has somewhat of the bone-like armor protrusions across its body, however, it has one massive difference. It has that of a massive bone-like skulled helmet. Before then, it opens up showing one massive eye, as it's known as this being a high-ranking monster from the 40th floor, a monster known as a Deander, as it gives off that of a twisted smile towards Will, before then punching him straight into the gut, into that of a building, catching Will completely and utterly off guard. As Will trying to recover from that of being in that of the crater of the building, he soon notices that of the Deander up into the air on that of the other side of the buildings, before jumping up once more, wings out and all, before then seeing that of his own Mage Slayer blade, as it's different from the ones that the Dinover basically wield. Instead, it actually looks like that of a long single-edged blade, similar to that of Cloud's Buster Sword, making it a modified version of a Mage Slayer blade. As he brings it down, cutting right through the building that Will was in, sending him flying right even through that of the building too. Luckily enough, he was able to guard last minute, but that last minute wasn't even enough. While still being sent flying, he soon basically stabs his sword into the back of the building, causing him to stop his momentum and fly and basically fall down too to the ground, forcing him to catch his breath and pulling his sword out of the wall, saying, "The hell is this thing? Its strength, its power, it defies all reasoning, even for a dungeon monster. Whatever the hell this thing is, it has to be from the lower floors because I have no idea what the hell it is. It might even be stronger," before flashing back at that of the practice exam, saying, "Even stronger than the Grand Duke I fought." Before then, thinking about the Keyblade, saying, if I had that thing, maybe, I don't know what the hell to do, damn it!" As Will, panicking in his mind, but still standing his ground, ready to get back into that of the fray against that of the Deander, as it's still basically smiling at Will, with even Maria basically noticing that of the Deander, with realizing that this is one of a few creatures that basically have killed Magia Vander themselves, showing that this monster is no joke. Is then Xeno couldn't help but basically grin, even though the fact that it cost him 50 of his men, it's still going to have a little bit of fun, especially if it's able to rampage and have some fun out of the dungeon, with Will blocking another slash from it, but still sent flying back once again, as he uses his sword to basically keep himself grounded, as Will trying to catch his breath, but still huffing and puffing over and over, saying, "Damn it all, if I block an attack, I feel like my body is about to basically break from the impact alone, and even if I dodge, I get swept away by the air pressure alone. This thing, it's a monster, truly a monster among monsters. Damn it, my only option is either fight or run or die." As the Deander, not even stopping, rushing towards Will at blinding speeds, with Will on pure outer instinct, blocks the attack again before being sent flying into that of some debris once more. As Will trying his best to get back up, he soon noticed that the Deander is not even paying attention to him anymore. As it looks over, he sees that of two of Scion's lackeys, as they're basically terrified, scared, and basically and utterly in fear at that of the Deander, as he raises up the Mage Slayer blade, before then a huge mass of dust begins to emerge from that of where the two boys were. However, luckily enough, Will pushed himself hard enough to basically block and keeping that of the Devander's Magic Slayer from even touching them, as they're currently in that of a deadlock. However, you could barely even call it a deadlock, with Will trying his best to hold it off, with one of them saying, "Wait, is that the laggard?" With Will saying, "Run! Get out of here now!" As still being pushed down, as even the ground begins to crack. Luckily enough, the two boys are able to run quickly. Before then, the Devander basically raises its right leg back before kicking Will straight into his gut, as Will couldn't able to catch his breath before being sent flying through that of more and more destroyed houses. And not stopping there, already above that of Will, he basically chops him down into that of the ground, creating a crater, pushing Will past his limits, and basically in a world full of pain, as it brings down his Mage Slayer once again, trying to kill Will. Before then, Dodon soon shows up and pushes back that the Devander with his massive dwarf strength. Within, the elderly dwarf saying, "You still alive there, Will?" With Will shocked saying, "Dodon, what are you?" With many of the other dwarves begin to show up, as he's saying, "Don't worry, we'll cut up this bastard to tiny little pieces." With, thankfully enough, it was Iris who basically led that of the dwarves to that of Will, to focus more on defeating that of the Devander, given that it's one of the biggest and most threatening targets. With even that of the mages finishing off that of the Dino Bees easily, with heading towards that of the Devander too, wanting to make sure that the dwarves destroy that of the Mage Slayer that it's wielding. However, while they run away, the Dino Bees that were basically already all dead, something comes out of them, as it seems like maybe their essence or the mana within them, all flying towards the Devander. As it, at the same time, as its chest begins to open up too, with that of the essence of the fallen monsters flying into it. But at the same time, as its body begins changing, its magic core within it is basically coming out of its body at the same time. Within, even Edwards noticed this too, realizing it was a trap. However, it was too late to even act, as that of the Devander. With then, as Devanders have a special unique ability tied to them, that it's able to basically devour surrounded dead monsters' essence into that of its magic core. An ability that's rarely been seen towards those in the who head down to the lower floors, mainly due to Devander being one of the most powerful monsters and is always alone. But it shows that a loner without the power to still live on for its comrades. As the core goes back into its body, as its body begins to morph, change, and shift. However, that's when the dwarves try to go in, alongside that of Dorgan as well. However, that's when Zeno comes in, throwing one of his magic knives, creating, as it's basically consumed with that of dark magic, saying, it's not fair to basically interrupt when this guy's trying to fight back fairly, right? As he throws more and more knives, which basically consume that of dark magic around all the doors, keeping them at distance. At the same time, that's when the Devander's body finally stops changing and morphing, as now it looks exactly like that. As its head begins to change, the bone-like armor begins to also morph, as the, fleshy-like body begins to grow even more massive, as its bone-like armor also begins to basically go around its entire body, and no longer having a singular eye, as that of the bone-like helmet, now basically created as that of bone-like helmet with that of a cross-like shaped visor, and having that of two eyes now, while still having the Magic Slayer blade in his hands, with its wings also growing a lot more larger as well, letting off that of a powerful roar as it doesn't hold anything back now. As coming from the back of its wings, it soon sends that of multiple spikes into that of the dwarves, killing them instantly, with Will screaming, "No!" and Zeno laughing on that of the rooftops, in that of pure and utter joy seeing the chaos, as he screams to everyone saying, "Nothing, magic doesn't work on this, neither does dwarf brute strength either. This is absolute carnage, and I'm loving every second of it. You fools are basically denying the inevitable after all." Smiling behind that of his mask, with Will being unable to basically stop the chaos that is happening, seeing all the dwarves that have always been nice to him, many of them dying right in front of him, and him being unable to do anything. With Will coming to the realization saying, they basically led us with that of those dino beasts, believing them wielding magic slayers was their main trump card. But no, they were preparing with that monster entirely, weakening us at the same time, weakening their own forces, just so it can empower that thing. As this was all going according to plan now, even with now the Deander basically being the most powerful thing on the battlefield, killing through dwarves and tower ranked mages without even breaking a sweat. With Will seeing this, basically feeling like everything is starting to basically fall apart now. With then, Will begins to think, back down to the dungeon, back down against that of the Grand Drake, with the power of the Keyblade, saying, I need it. I need the Keyblade, but I just don't know how. With then, feeling frustrated, before then, noticing Rusty, as he says, Rusty! Before then, Rusty saying, Will, you remember, look deep into your heart. Feel your emotions now. Think about that at the Keyblade. Within, saying, my heart? Do you... Before then, trying to look deep down, as he feels that of the pressure, feeling something coming within him, something bright, something strong. As then, without warning, as he brings up his sword to the air, however, at that very moment, the evolved Deander basically breaks Will's sword with just one solitary slash, with completely catching Will and Rusty off guard. With then, Rusty realizing, no, with even Will saying, he broke my sword, saying, I need another one. I need to. Before getting even a chance, what left of the blade, he tries to block with it. Before then, that's when that of the Deander just continues swinging, slashing towards that of Will, chipping away at that of his sword. Before then, completely knocking him aside. With then Rusty screaming, Will! Knocked into that of another building, with basically barely anything left of his blade. Within, Rusty saying, as he basically puts down that of Kiki, saying, Kiki, go find Miss Colette and the others. You'll be safe there. There's something I need to do. Within, Kiki, a little bit worried for that of Rusty, but deciding to listen to find the others. Before Rusty saying, I know what I need to do. With that, as currently, with that of Will being basically ragdolled around, as thinking about everything, that all the hard work, all the training, all the studying, everything he done down to the dungeon, all meaningless, all pointless, all nothing. Within thinking, is this the end for me? Before that the Deander could basically land the final blow, Will was soon pushed out of the way, with his glasses falling off, alongside that what's left of his sword. With then looking back, seeing Rusty being the one to basically push Will, and not only that, Rusty basically being stabbed by that of the Magic Slayer. As seeing that of Rusty's face, with Will trying to reach out for Rusty, however, his body basically shatters almost like ice or crystal. As Will looks back, thinking about his friend, the one person always by his side, always supporting him, his roommate, his inventor, his almost close to the closest thing that he had to a best friend, now dying for him, as he screams, "Rusty!" before being catched by that a Wartner on that of his wyvern, as they fly through that of the destroyed streets, before flying away from that of the Deander, before screaming towards his professor to let him go so he could save Rusty. However, Wartner knew Rusty was already gone. With Wartner looking over that of the destruction, realizing that the dwarves are done, their frontline defenses are completely eradicated. Within looking back at Will, realizing he's their only and last hope to win this. However, right now, Will is not in the best head straight, saying, "I'm so useless. I'm so pathetic. I can't protect a damn thing, can I? It's all because I can't use magic. It's all because I'm a useless, worthless, pathetic laggard, am I? I couldn't even stand by Elfie's side. I can't even protect Rusty. Everything is my damn fault." Before then, he collapsed and breaks down crying. With then, Wartner feeling sad and pity for that of Will, saying, "Will, I get it, but right now is not the time. You need to get a grip. Without you, Will." Before then, Xeon saying, "Sorry, but that little brat needs to die if he gets another weapon after all. Especially given that he's such a pain in the ass just like the dwarves. So, how about I do you all a favor and make this quick for both of you?" Before sending out of his knives towards Wartner, Will, and his wyvern. However, even though Will and Wartner are basically attacked, it's no better anywhere else, as almost half of the civilians reaching that of the south end of that of the city. However, as for many of the students, even that of what's left of the tower mages are all being wiped out, even the dwarves. However, even with that, they're all still fighting, every last one of them, with many of the students trying their best, but even their best isn't enough, with many of them even dying on the battlefield too. Some even had plans before all this happening. But even so, the teachers, alongside that of Edwards, Eliza, and even that of the remaining dwarves, still continue fighting on. But even with that, with one last push, nothing is well, until a certain someone finally appears, saying, "So, looks like things are pretty grim here. Not to mention, you don't look well yourself, Iris." With that, the glasses-wearing watcher looks back, seeing Flynn, saying, "Lord Flynn, how's the Keyblade?" Or I should better ask, looking at that of Will's broken blade, saying, "Where is the Keyblade?" Currently with that of Will and Wartner, with Will a bit scuffed up here and there, but still in one piece, before wondering, "Professor Wartner, where are you?" Within, saying, "I'm over here, and I'm all right. Will, besides, my main priority was making sure that you stayed safe. I wouldn't be able to call myself a proper teacher if I couldn't do that." While saying all that, he has that of a hole right through his upper torso, before Will basically collapsed, saying, "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm sorry that I'm so useless. I'm a worthless student. You always having to come to my rescue. I'm such a failure. As Wertner hears all this, he basically goes that of Will, step by step, while still bleeding out. Before then, wrapping his arms around Will, saying, I had to apologize too, Will. The fact is, you do have magic. You've always had it. I'm not talking about that of the Keyblade. I'm talking about your heart. You've always had one magic spell that always made us feel like anything can be done. The heart with the lights within inside your heart. After saying those words, his body goes limp, with Will freaking out, telling him to stay with him, speak, continue what he was saying, say something, don't leave him too. Before that of Will could start crying, a voice saying, man, you really are a piece of work, you know that? Before then, looking back, seeing Flynn, saying, I guess to be expected since you're his kid after all. Well, I should say theirs. But then, Will saying, Mr. Flynn, what are you doing here? Saying, just don't worry, that he should be fine. The attack basically missed that of his heart. So, I need to make sure that I can stitch up that, make sure to repair a bit of his more damaged organs though. Before then, Will wondering, what the hell is he? Before soon hearing that of Wertner's heartbeat, even with that of the hole in his chest and that of his sternum, saying, how is he? Before then, seeing that of flowers coming from that of Wertner's, missing wound, as now he seems somewhat healed, but still in critical condition, saying, now with that taken care of, I need to basically get you back into tip-top fighting shape. Why haven't you used it yet? Within saying, the Keyblade, why haven't you reawakened it like you did before in the dungeon? Saying, you're asking me to do that? Now? Here? That's impossible. I've tried so many times. I can't do it, damn it. Yes, you can. Within realizing the first time you did it, you needed a catalyst. You needed this little sword right here, but the catalyst isn't the sword. It's you. It's your heart. You need to reawaken on who you truly are. The destiny within inside you. I can't fully go into details about it, but you need to reawaken the key within you. The sword that will bring light back to this world. It's impossible. But yet, here are you, a boy who is a sword, becoming a wand. Trying to ascend to the tower. Trying to become a Deander. You are basically the very definition of overcoming it all through your heart, through your emotions, your will. I can only allow you to reawaken it once, but it's all up to you. You need to be the one to face yourself. Before then, going to that of his knees, going as soon placing his hand on that of Will's chest, saying, you need to know who you are as a Keyblade wielder and why you are so important to this world. With that, Will's eyes basically shrunk as that of the certain spell circles that are always in his eyes when he has a strong will appear itself, the heart-shaped spell circles. Before then, Will's vision goes black. He blacks out. Before then, he opens his eyes and seeing below him, it almost looks like that of a stained glass window. However, that stained glass window shows him holding that of his regular sword, but those within that of the stained glass window and that of windows themselves, from that of Elfiria to Colette to Wignall to Lihara, even Julius and Scion are there too. But beyond that also lies that of ReGarden Academy and the tower, and as Will holds true. within saying, what is this? What am I? Within a voice saying, do you truly wish to use the light? Do you truly wish to go on this path? You've already been on enough hardships, enough pain, enough to basically consume you by the darkness. And yet, you still wish to go on. What else is there if you wish to continue on this path of hardship and suffering? As Will thinks back about everything he's gone through, from the suffering, the pain, the bullying, the ridicule, the demeaning, even to the point of people sabotaging him in his grades, he can't help but feel twisted and annoyed. But he looks back to those who were always by his side, those who were always there for him, those who didn't care that he didn't have magic, but by his side always, and even see him for him. Not the laggard of ReGarden Academy, but as Will Surfort, saying, because there are people worth fighting for. Even in a world like this, no matter what I go through, no matter who I face against, I will fight for them. I will stand for them. That is what I'm meant to do, right? As a Keyblade wielder. Before then, everything stays quiet before shaking happening, saying, and that is the right answer. Before as soon, and that of the stained glass, the sword that Will always wields, in that of the dungeons, begins to fade, and something else materialize in its stead, as it's the ultima weapon. Within, the voice saying, may your heart be your guiding key. Move forward, the key of this world. Before then, Will's eyes and body begins to turn into that of gold. Before outside, within Will, his body begins to bring out that of a golden light, as merging from it, almost like pure light itself. As then he stands up and raising out that of his right hand, as he almost looking like grasping something, as materializing in that of his hand is that of the ultima weapon. Before then, a few that of Dino Bees basically show up, lunging towards Will and Flynn. However, with one solitary swing of his blade, the light from that of the sword slash the sim alone completely and utterly eradicates them. Within, Flynn can help but smirk, saying, This is the power of the Keyblade, the power of this world's Keyblade. You are this world's key to its bright future. Now stand proud, Will Surfort. With Will eyes fully, you can fully see that of the heart-shaped spell circle in his eyes and all, as Will is ready to finally put an end to this horrid night. And that's it. Thank you guys for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Please tell me what you guys think in the comments below. Let's read them. And yeah, this was kind of a long ass one. Sorry about that, guys. Also, sorry about leaving it off a cliffhanger, but I needed to basically build it up. Will reawakening the Keyblade properly, just like how he basically fully reawakens that of Weiss. So yeah, and hopefully I'll get the next part out as soon as I can. But I also need to do that of other KH content too. So yeah, anyway, with all that said, if you guys like this, please like, comment, and subscribe. Hit that bell notification, keep you updated my videos upload to the channel. Also, please check out my Discord, my gaming channel, my other channel, my side channel, my Patreon, and my Cash App. All link in description below. And remember, if you guys want me to do that of a what if one shot of your choosing, please make a commission down below, and I'll do it as soon as I can. So, with all that said, this is Leon Mookie, signing out. Later, guys, and hope you all take care. Thank you so much for watching and staying to the end of the video.
But there's still so much on my loved channel.
That's right, such as my other what if content and the most recent what ifs as well.
Not to mention his playlist, where you can watch all of his other what ifs.
Which, all said and done, this is Leon.
And Shiro.
And you're watching Leon Mookie.